bit less prepared than we intended this morning because of the power outage, and I didn't want to. I always write down my crutch as the PowerPoint, so we'll try and use it all the same. Let's start by our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to gather in this hall of worship, in this place that you provide to us to honor you and to help inspire us to go out into the world to fulfill the Great Commission. Please be with all of us as we sit and we hear and we get inspired by the goings on the campus here, and as we look forward to the future, to what the congregation of St. Paul could do in your name, in the community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I think Nicole is handing out agendas. I'm going to be using my laptop here, but I didn't have a printout. So, bear with me. If you are a voting member and you have not signed the bylaws, the process is to sign the bylaws and then you can vote. I'm not sure if you're a voting member or not. You can see Nicole there. She has all the answers I've found in my life. So she can talk to you and get you through that as we go forward. Okay. So I'm going to say we'll go through the State of the Church address, then we have a couple of elections to do, and then we will be done. So we have. I'm sorry. Say that again, Kent. You want something?
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Then we have Kent. Oh my word. I am so sorry. Yeah, we did. Kent and I talked about this last week. But then flooding and rains and everything came in the way. So keep me on track, Mr. Christensen, okay? All right. So let us begin. If we go back a year, it was February 2nd, 2022, when we started talking about the challenges. We started talking about what was going on. If we keep the slides going, thank you. We talked about 5 strong pillars. And this is something that is this goes back a long way. We found references to our 5 strong pillars go quite far back. They're consistent with what we have today as they were when they were first written down. In fact, when the core committee is working, they went out and did a survey and they asked what are the strengths of the ministry, and some of the answers that came back were the elementary school, the Sunday worship, community events, the preschool ministry, and the Hmong ministry. That was by the survey, so either there's some correlation going on through the Lord our God through the Holy Spirit, and we've got it right. But this is what the 5 strong pillars have been. As part of that outreach, though, the core committee also asked what are the areas that need improvement, what are the areas we need to be focusing on. And so the answers provided there were the youth ministry, the elementary school, community activities, senior activities, and Sunday worship. And as part of that, we also asked what are the things that we need in the incoming next pastor role. What do we need in there? And they gave some answers about leadership, motivational leader, and doing the type of things that can keep building on the strengths of these pillars and moving forward. Back in February of 2022, we asked where were the challenges. If we hit the next slide, we'll see that here are the concerns that were raised back then. The first one is the lack of unity that we had with our 5 ministries. And the second one was where we didn't really understand our direction. We didn't really, we were concerned about the Sunday attendance. If I kind of look through those things as we stand today, I did grade them. I think the lack of unity amongst the 5 pillars, that is still a concern today. The board talks a lot about that type of thing. But we are making progress in some of the things that we're doing here. There's more to come on that as we go through this. We spent a lot of time in the spring to summer of last year working on our visioning exercise of the board exercise. We completed that. We rolled it out starting in the church here on July 1. We are making good inroads. And so I feel that that's on the right track. It's heading up. And Sunday attendance is actually on the right track. I think we're getting more Sunday attendance. One of the nice things about to report financially is that our tithing is up. Danny, Treasurer Dan, has told us about that this week. And then the two other things that were raised last year were the loss of the past of another senior pastor and the impact of coronavirus. And I don't want to go into those. I see those as things that have happened in the past, and we're all moving forward now. And you know, I think last year I quoted Jeremiah 29, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And that's where our focus is, on the future. A reminder of our vision on our next slide is the vision and exercise that we completed articulated that our vision is for St. Paul to be a place that creates believers, equips and educates to find more. And the mission statement that we adopted, and our mission statement I want to see blasted around campus and all our letterheads and things like that, is nurturing believers in Jesus, equipping scholars and connecting families in an ever-changing world. My goodness, isn't it ever-changing? I didn't expect to be in a world where I would be in a flood zone overnight recently. I didn't expect to be in a world where it's very divisive out there in either politics or opinion. I didn't expect to be in a world where we get worried about recessions and things like that almost on a daily basis. The things that are going on in the world, what grounds me is when I listen a lot to Bob Radio. You guys do that, it's the Christian Radio Network. And there's a Scottish pastor on there who is, I just like listening to Scottish accents. It takes me back to when I'm at home. But when he talks about all of the challenges, one of the things he talks about is grounding you back in Christ, because that's where you can take refuge, that's where you can build strength, and that's when you can take out. And so I love the fact that our mission statement brings us back to that way of recognizing the challenge, but we're going forward with the strength of Christ in us. Our values, on the next slide, we go into some detail. I think we've explored these pretty well, right? We've explored these pretty well. We had a sermon series on these. We want to be doing more in the church and the preschool around this as well. And Pastor and Mrs. Mello have been talking about these in those services. But we've really worked on ensuring that we have a direction, and we ground what we do, we ground our decision making in what our core values are. Now, back in July, we also set about making some objectives and these goals. This process that we engage in is a process I've used professionally. It's called OGSM. I'm not going to go into the science or methodology, but we basically came up with 4 high-level goals that we wanted the organization to follow for the year. And it's on the next slide. We talked about the objective was to increase engagement and collaboration across all of the ministries to set up St. Paul for the future. And for me, we're in that tee of the year. We're in the middle of a call process. We're going to end up with a new campus executive and a senior pastor. We need to be ready to hit the ground running, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we had, when a new pastor comes in, we have communication, we have collaboration between all of our ministries, so he's not in an immediate fix-it mode. If he feels that he has to fix it, we have everybody coming and working there. We wanted to align our ministries behind the MVP. We wanted to get on top of operating with Lutheran values at our core and with sound financial planning, and we want to start that groundwork for a long-term view. I'm going to dive into each one of these a little bit. So let's start with the improve. This one. The areas of focus when we get to improve are around what have we done in order to improve communication and collaboration. And one of the first things we did, what we wanted to get back to, was having a really inclusive board meeting. A couple of things I heard under the previous setup was that senior staff specifically, were not permitted to be at the board meeting or were asked to be at the board meeting. And we made changes to make sure that we have all of our executive team able to be there. We have our campus administrator with Mrs. Love, we have our principal, Mrs. Mello, we have Pastor Dewar there, and we invite staff members as needed. The other thing that we did, we wanted to make sure that our staff know that is an opportunity for them to engage as well. So we talked to the staff at the beginning of the school year about board meetings or what have you. And that kind of structures with our transparency goal. We're trying to be transparent with the decisions that we're making, the reasons we're making decisions, and we're making those decisions in a public setting, not in an isolated, opaque way, which can cause confusion for folks. Pastor Allen has taken it on board to have regular executive meetings with his team and regular devotions with the team. That's been going well. And another initiative that Pastor Allen led with the staff was having a unified calendar. So we're not in a situation where we had conflicting mission events at the same time. That has happened in the past. We're hoping that's going to go away. And an area that's kind of come up more recently is revisiting our branded identity. And I want to touch a little bit on this as we go to the next slide. So this came up because we had a question raised about, specifically about some of the way that the school was referring to itself. And Nicole, one of our board members, Nicole Cook, was tasked with kind of investigating where we are. And we came up with these very two interesting things. We have 13 names for ourselves, and we have 9 different set of logos and letterheads floating around. I like to think I'm kind of good at marketing. I actually always was really good at hiring somebody for marketing in actuality, but that's a different story. But this creates confusion. It does not create a unified ministry, and it doesn't create a good look in the community, because which St. Paul are we talking about? So one of the things that we have to go forth and do is we're going to have to go forth and look at all of this. How do we structure ourselves from a branding perspective? And we've got some ideas, we've had some inspiration, but we're going to be looking for some help on this. So if you folks have a passion for either marketing or a passion for how we refer to ourselves, then I'd love to hear from you. If you can see Nicole after school. After this, and then she can help you with that. But I think the key here is I want to stay true to our values. We are a Lutheran church that has a preschool, a school, and a home ministry as a mission. So our identity must represent those things. That's my personal goal for what we do. Moving on, we talked about the align all the ministries under the newly adopted mission, vision, and values. We've had an educational session with the staff, which was one of those things. I think, Bethany and Amy and Mrs. Vogel and Mrs. Mello, it's one of those things when you get up and talk about it, when you're talking to an organization that's never done this, there's a lot of kind of raised eyebrows and we'll believe it when we see it type reactions to it. But one of the things we have to get back to with the entire campus staff is being reinforcing that everywhere and doing a little bit more work. I think there's more work to be done there. But I think we also have to work on making sure that when we are using things like letterheads and things like stationery, and we're talking about what our mission is and stuff like that, we remember that we've gone through this exercise and we stay consistent with it. Some of the actions that we're going to be ongoing is we really need to, we're working on some initiatives right now with Pastor Allen is leading that is hopefully going to set us up better next year with regards to how the staff sees the mission, vision, values as a core part of what they're doing here, right? And so that's really important so that we don't so that starting in the next kind of school year, because at the church year on July 1, we start off with this baked into everything that is their being and is their job and is the description, so that we have a consistent, single direction that we want everybody to be rowing and driving in whatever you like. The last thing we wanted to focus on was the second to last thing we wanted, the penultimate thing we wanted to focus on was about operating our ministries with Lutheran values and supported by sound financial planning. This year we introduced, or last year we introduced catechism, we introduced the Holy Communion as an opportunity for some of the school-age folks over at the campus. This coming year that's going to be rolled into the educational program over there, I believe in the 6th grade. I'm not entirely sure of the details, Mrs. Mello and Pastor Allen can confirm, but we're starting to get that Lutheran values into the school side, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, one of the challenges we have is probably more on the financial side. We're not approving a budget. That'll be our next meeting. Kubota's meeting will be working on budgets, but I did want to kind of focus a little bit here about some of the challenges that we're facing. So, specifically on the church side, we count the church as separate, and the school is separate, and the preschool is separate, and the Hmong ministry. If you treat them all separately, you can look at them through what I think is a false view of the world. Is because when you treat them separately, financially, you can make things work, but you don't really get to appreciate the true picture. You know what I mean? So one of the things that we started doing is having a different budgetary view on how we present these things. One of the challenges we've got is really on the school and the preschool side. There's two challenges here that we're working through. First of all, we've talked about the St. Paul auction, the St. Paul Church and School auction. That is a huge event. It brings in about $150,000. Unfortunately, that is critical is even an understatement. Without that event, this ministry is not solvent. And that is a huge concern for everybody. Not because we're raising money through not necessarily because we're raising money through that type of event. It's one event. And what happened during COVID was a huge wake-up call, certainly to me, was that, yeah, you can rely on raising money, but if one thing happens that cancels the event, you're in a lot of trouble. And now, luckily, we were able to apply for 2 rounds of PPP funding as a funding shortfall, but it highlighted the fact that when, as a ministry, we rely on one thing to tide it over, that's a bit of a risk. To remind me of my notes. So the other thing around there is that another thing that's come up is on the preschool side, we've seen a lot lower enrollment this year. The preschool has always been a profit center. It's always been a place where we've made more money than we put in. It's been fantastic. This year is challenging because the introduction of a California state bill, I'm not sure what the number is, that basically allows transitional kindergarten in the public setting to be free. And so what we've ended up with is a lot less enrollment in the preschool side, which is lower than, so actually on the preschool side, this budget year, we're going to be projecting we'll be running at a deficit. On the school side, on the K through 6 side, we have been, for a number of years, we've been running a deficit on the scholarship. We've handed out more scholarship than we've had funding for. It's not always been accounted for transparently on that one. The last couple of rounds we've been a lot more transparent on that, so we kind of have the top and the bottom end. So we're actually seeing that. And with that being said, we've also, because of that deficit, we've had to make cuts in other places. And so the way that we've managed the schools, the way that the school side has been managed up to this point has been we've made cuts in expenditures, we've deferred maintenance, we've obviously been relying on PPP funding and the auction and grants. But we're at a point now where we've got some challenges with our facilities, the art room, the library, the OMC, I mean, they're all the roofs are made from the same materials that I drain my rice in. They're all leaking like a sieve. And so we have an issue right now in the fact that we've deferred a lot of the maintenance, we've deferred a lot of investment. I remember a couple of years ago, Amy and Mrs. Mello and Mrs. Dodrell were the before school care because that was one of the budget decisions that was made. And so you end up stretching your staff and I don't know how you did it, Mrs. Mello, to be honest with you, but thank you. But we're in a situation now where we really need to take a step back and have a look at how that funding model is working. And the first step in that was this week actually, the last board meeting, we approved a 10% increase for the tuition. That's step one. That's about 4 points above the nominal rate of inflation. And it's about 20 points below where it would be if we wanted to run this same level. So we've got to look at the way that we're funding the school, we've got to look at the way that we manage our facilities, and we've got to rethink and restructure how we do that. We're going to start the process now. The first step was to do that increase. The next step is probably going to be a capital campaign of sorts, as well as a different way of approaching certain aspects of the ministry, one of which is how we handle scholarships. We actually last year established a scholarship award committee that would be a group of folks that would review all the applications and approve the necessary scholarship amounts. That is something that we're going to continue to build on. The way that we were set up before Pastor Allen came, I should say, all of the authority was basically divested and pushed down into the principal, and so all the decision making was being done there, which I think is two things. That's a lot to ask of one person, completely unfair. And as we've been changing and then from a board level, not many of those decisions were necessarily visible because the principal was not invited to the board. On the scholarship side, it was a very ad hoc process, and the principal this year asked for a committee to be formed so that it would be an inclusive decision that was visible to everybody, so it's not just on one person's shoulder, which I think is completely fair. It's that type of activity that we're going to be moving to as we go forward, so that we can have a much more collaborative approach to how we manage this. The last area of focus I want to talk about is starting that groundwork for what Vision 2030 might look towards. We have a core committee ongoing right now. The chair of the core committee, Ken Vogel, we were talking the other day. We are told President Mike has us as his number one priority for getting a list. As soon as we get a list, the core committee will be going through that and following the process. That's where we're at today. I think I'm optimistic we'll have something fairly soon, or the core committee will have something fairly soon to review. We're working on WASC accreditation right now. WASC accreditation is what the school is doing to stay as an accredited organization. There's multiple teams working on that. There's people from the church, people parents from the school, and that's something that Principal Mallow is leading. I think we might need to form a long-term vision team. I have a question mark next to it, and the reason I have a question mark is I think that's probably something that is done when a new pastor arrives. It's not something that we necessarily want to start and then have a new pastor come into the middle. So it's one of those on-hold pieces, but it's certainly there. And the last thing that's there is to define the relationship with Trinity Lutheran. Has anybody got any rumors about the relationship with Trinity Lutheran? Anybody here? So, there's some good ones, okay. So let's talk about that one in particular. Trinity Lutheran was actually a congregation that was started by this congregation back in 1938. That's me not knowing the exact date. It eventually, during post-Seminex, when everything blew up, they went to a different direction. They first went to Elk, and then they went to a different affiliation, and then last year they came back to LCMS. It's a congregation right now that has approximately 10 to 12 worshippers on a Sunday. It is supported by Pastor Sebastian, who lives an hour or so away, and Pastor Bass, who lives another hour or so away. And both of those are, I think they're both octogenarians actually. I think they're up there. They're at the point where they're not necessarily wanting to be commuting as a pulpit supply constantly, because they're technically retired. So President Mike asked us to have a conversation with them. And we formed an exploratory group that could go have that conversation. The first Pastor Alan and I went down. And then we went down, and there was Nicole Cook, Laurie Reed's part of that group, but she couldn't attend the last meeting, unfortunately. There was myself and Dick Homer. And we went down to meet with them to see what their needs are. Okay. So right now they have about 10 to 12 worshippers. They have a nice parish hall. They have a very cute, I don't know, cute's not the word, it's an old school little worship house. Very nice. And they have a Spanish language pastor as well that has a huge online following. We don't know the stats, but that's a positive that's going on. But they don't have the congregational size to call a full-time pastor. So the idea, as President Mike said, what can we do? In this modern world, in this ever-changing world, all congregations are looking at how can we do things. And so you have sometimes multiple congregations called different pastors. I don't know what the future holds with our relationship with Trinity Lutheran, but what we said we would do is come up with a proposal that we would maybe provide pastoral services on a Sunday, and then incorporate those 10 to 12 individuals into the invitations for things like our Wednesday worship, or our Lenten services, or our Advent services, or Fifth Sunday. And that would be kind of a step one to see how things go. The reality is, every Sunday, we have 2 pastors right now driving past their facility. Right? Every single Sunday right now. And they have a need. And the Great Commission is always in my heart, and I think there's a need that St. Paul can help supply there. They would be able to fund that and pay St. Paul back for that time. And so that's where we're at. We're at a point where we're going to write up that memorandum of understanding and see if we can make that work. It would be in a way that wouldn't necessarily impact the worship here. It would not impact the worship here, not necessarily. We do it in a time that would allow Pastor Alan and Pastor Dewar to be able to go and fulfill a Sunday worship there. And then we just invite those brothers and sisters of the faith to our events. And I think that's a good kind of first step, see how things go. And then if things develop from there, we'll take it one step at a time. And I know there's probably concerns, rumors about that. I'd be willing to hear some now if you have any questions about that in particular. And if not now, speak to myself, to Laurie, to Dick, or Nicole as well. That's a good opportunity to give some feedback. Okay. So if I keep going, let's get there. So where do we go from here, I think, is the state of the church is that we've got work to do. We've got an absolutely amazing ministry on campus in our school and our preschool. We have a large staff that is for the most part, completely dedicated to the mission. When you go over to see the preschool and the school staff, they are extremely dedicated to providing a quality education and a Christian influence on the kids in the classroom. We have a call process in place. It's going to result in the call of the senior pastor, and we have a lot of other things that we have going on. We've got to continue to build on what we know already. We've got to continue to focus on our missions, and we've got to realize that St. Paul is not just a Sunday thing. When today's, I always get. I can't remember what it was. Let me just bring it back. I think it's a gospel reading, isn't it? Yeah, from Matthew. When I'm out in my fishing boat and some crazy dude from the sideline tells me to get out my boat and come with him, my initial reaction is, It always astounds me that what happened in that lesson from Matthew, and the fact that there was a response to a call, right? And I think for me that's a really important part of what we have today. We have to respond to the call that's in front of us. There's work to be done here at St. Paul. And when you hear a call, I really encourage you to think about that lesson. What did Peter do? What did all the others do when they had that call? They saw a need and they went for it. How we respond is going to be individual. Might not necessarily be signing up for a board to be a board member or an elder or something else. It might not be something. It could be financial, it could be time, talent, time, and treasure. They're the 3 things that we have to give. But we have to respond all the same. And I pray that your hearts are open to that as we move forward. The last element I think I wanted to show you here is just a real quick summary of where we do have those opportunities. We talked about the branded identity work that's going to go on. If you have a passion for that, please let us know. I think we're going to have to do, like I said, some form of capital campaign. That will be in collaboration with the school parents, so that will be in collaboration with everybody on campus here to see what we need to do with our facilities. Dan has been a faithful servant in this space and is often around and on campus, and we bump into each other a lot, even though I'm not on that, not great at the facility stuff myself. We also designated Kim Long, who's our basic campus manager, to do the facility stuff. And between Kim and Danny, they've contracted with a contractor that's helping out a lot too. And that's where you see some of the work here. But if you were in here when the rains came, you would have realized that we got a lot of work to do ahead of us. The Board of Elders is another opportunity to serve, and actually next year, so will be the Mission and Ministry Council. This is actually my last year on the council, so I get to retire next year. So have that in your thoughts and in your minds as we move forward. I'm sure there's other opportunities too. Now, speaking of opportunities, we do have our elections right now. We're going to move on to the Board of Directors election. So this is the Mission and Ministry Board. We have two open positions, or two positions that are for election right now. The two positions, I've had two nominations of the current members that are willing to carry on serving, Jan Sorgi and Nicole Cook. I would like to hear if there are any nominations from the floor. There being no nominations, then I will close the nomination period and I'll ask for a motion and a second for Jan and Nicole to be elected to be on the Mission and Ministry Board of Directors for another 2 years. Mary Brown is motioning. And I have a second, please. Kent is seconded, and we'll, with that said, any further discussion? I will close. We'll do this by voice acclamation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Nicole Jan, you're stuck with me for another year. Thank you. Next we have the Board of Elders. We have 3 of our 5 positions right now open. We have Dick Holman was appointed at the last, since the last election, so we need to confirm Dick. Dick has agreed to serve on the Board of Elders. That was the one that was posted. I am also accepting nominations from the floor.
I'd like to nominate Elmo Bauer.
Elmo Bauer is nominated from the floor. Any further nominations? Then we have, for those 3 positions, we have Dick Holman and Elmo Bauer. I'll entertain a motion for those to be nominated into the Board of Elders. Thank you very much, Ward. Yeah, he's only in the back, yeah.
He's been a member a long time.
He has.
Started coming back.
And he has agreed to serve.
Yes, he has agreed, by the way. The proposal for him to join came after we already posted, so we have to accept that nomination from the floor. There be no more nominations. I'll entertain a motion to nominate Elmo and Dick to be on the Board of Elders. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And a second? Yeah, a second. Thank you very much. A voice vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. Motion unanimously carries. Thank you, Dick and Elmo. At this time, I'd like to invite Kent up to have a discuss a idea and proposal he has that I'm fully supportive of. So here it is.
As you all know, I like to cook once in a while. I can remember back to the times when we'd have turkey dinners in November, and we were able to do a lot of that outside of the church and bring it in, and the health department's getting stricter and stricter and not even allow us to do that. Well, we have a problem is this kitchen is not really designed to cook in. because our ovens are pushing 40 years old. One of them, the oven doesn't work very well. The other one, we have to put a lot of time and effort into it. If you put something up. My proposal is, and if you look at this, these are convection ovens, and there's really a total of 3 ovens there. I'm looking to purchase the very top one. If you look at the bottom 2, that's really what they call a double stack convection oven. And the top one could have that second stack added at a later time. It's just a matter of money, which always seems to be in short supply everywhere. I kind of would like to make it my goal to purchase the top one. These are used equipment pieces. They're coming out of Turlock. These used to be in LA School District. And the gentleman told me that every year LA School District has an auction where they're auctioning off their equipment because they replace them every year because they have so much money. So the top one is approximately $4,500. The bottom stacked, the double ones, is about $8,500. With that, we would be able to cook a wider variety of things because you could put individual chicken pieces on a tray, put approximately 50 or 60 pieces on a tray and put it in. And then you could put 3 of those trays in there and cook it in approximately 45 minutes or whatever. And so I think it would give us an opportunity to be able to do more functions in the church here, and possibly the school would be able to use it a little bit more. They used to cook their meals here in the church. The stoves really are just good to cook things on top in a pot. That's really the biggest use that they have. If you have some major concerns about that, please talk to me. But like I say, I'm hoping by the end of this year, I would like to have one of those in the kitchen. We basically, it's my understanding, Danny, correct me, but the one on the left is the one that's the problem?
The unit, there are 2 units, stove and oven, and the unit on the right-hand side, the pilot will not.
It's the right-hand side one. So these fit in the same place. Even the double stack will fit underneath our hoods. We don't have the hoods are big enough. And really it's a matter of hooking to the gas line and plugging it into a 110 outlet. Because they do have a fan for the blowers for the convection oven. So if you have major concerns about it, let me know. We'll ponder those and make a decision to go forward, but that's my plan. I wanted the congregation to know. The goal is not to pull any money out of anything else going on to the church, because we have some definite needs. This is just kind of an extra thing, but to me it's extremely difficult to cook anything in this church right now. So I should give it back to you.
Thank you, Ken. As we walked in today without the power, I said to Annika that I actually kind of prefer the sanctuary without the power, because it draws a huge focus on the wonderful stained glass that we have here. And all of the stained glass around here reminds me of my churches at home, which are a wee bit less comfortable. We don't have bathrooms because they didn't build bathrooms into churches back then. My village church was built around about the 1100s. It's stone floors, hardwood seats, no heating. Yeah. And the electricity, I think, was first installed by Edison. There's about 7 bulbs in it. And it's so hokey, but it is a wee place that has a lot of stained glass in it. And for me, whenever I see the stained glass shining, it reminds me it takes me back to my childhood, but it reminds me of, these are what wonderful visual representations of the beauty that is the story that we try and live out every day. And this church in particular is extremely blessed to have so much stained glass. And so I'm going to ask at the end that we should turn off the lights as we exit here and go to fellowship so we can all look at it. So let's bow our heads and I'll close it with prayer. Heavenly Father, as we live in the modern world and we experience all the conveniences that we have, all the blessings that have been given to us, please help us stay humble. Help us stay close to you. Help us realize that everything that we have is through you. Everything that we do should be for you. And everything that we say should represent you. Please be in our hearts as we go out into the world. And please be with us as we work to fulfill the Great Commission, to spread the love that you gave us, the forgiveness that you have given us through the death of your Son, Jesus. Inspire us, comfort us, and send us out with a strong voice from St. Paul Lutheran Church and thus said, into the world. In your name we pray. Amen. Please join us for fellowship in the parish hall, but take a moment to look at the stained glass as you leave.
Thank you.
I'm like, you ain't what you talking about? When it's really about
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's what I need to go.